We're dealing with a serious matter. People are being killed there on a weekly basis. And I think that we need to address it without having police become cowboys, but in a constructive way, but in a definitive way. And for the president to be provocative is not solving the problem. It's undermining the leadership there that has to deal with this and has began to show results.
It has began to show results. That's the Reverend Al Charlatan. I think that he meant to say it has begun to show results, because to say it has began to show results would be grammatically incorrect. But he's a multi-million-dollar-a-year journalist in the employ of NBC fake news. And it's not clear whether that's his real hair or not. Do you think that's his real hair? Is that his real hair? Hard to say. A lot of gasoline gone through that hair. Well, very good Monday to you, and welcome back once again. We remain at 888-630-9625. That's right. If you want to fight crime in Chicago, well, then you are the problem. That has spoken from the perspective of the criminal, of course, the pro-crime Democrat. In 2024, there were 573 murders in Chicago. And Democrats, they like to say, oh, yeah, they make up these lies, these fantastical lies. The Democrats, if they're talking, they're lying. It's extraordinary. Oh, yeah, why doesn't the president put National Guard troops into St. Louis and Memphis, where they're red states? Yeah, the cities are Democrat cities, and that's where all the murders are. Maybe Democrats should stop murdering people. Stop shooting people. Let's write a song. We could write a song about the Democrats to stop shooting people. Does it have to be a rap song? Because you know how the Democrats are with that. Yeah, 573 homicides in 2024. And if you say you want to fight in New York City with 3 times the population, they had 377 homicides. 573 in Chicago, much smaller population. Don't worry about that at all. And Los Angeles, the gigantic, sprawling Los Angeles, with 259 homicides, but 573 in Chicago. And I haven't looked up my weekend violence in Chicago. They had protests over the weekend, pro-crime marches and protests in Chicago, because the Democrats want more crime and more murder. They're not on the side of civilization or the Enlightenment. But with that said, let us get to some of the audio that we've gathered up for you on this Monday, because the Democrats, they are whack-a-doodle-doo, aren't they? Now, President Trump, of course, cracked down on crime in Washington, D.C., and what is it? We've had the murder rate drop through the floor in Washington. The Democrats are like, well, that's not normal. We need more murder to get everything back to Democrat normal. Democrat normal is more crime. Democrat normal is more murder. Civilized person normal is fewer murders and less crime. But the Democrats, they're not on the side of civilization anymore. They're anti-enlightenment. They genuinely are. I've been talking about this for years, too. That they're anti-enlightenment, that there's not just attacking our culture and the Constitution of the Bill of Rights, but also the Enlightenment. You know, John Locke is a target of theirs, in their crosshairs. Isn't it amazing? Let's go to soundbite number 1. President Trump was asked about crime in Chicago, and he said, well, you know, we're fighting crime in D.C., things are going pretty well here.
We could solve Chicago very quickly, but we're going to make a decision as to where we go over the next day or two. When you look at what happened to D.C. in a short period of time, honestly, it's amazing. Over a period of 12 days, in other words, on the 12th day, we had the crime just about solved. And right now, people are walking down, they're going out right now to restaurants all over D.C.
Now, we had it 12 days. We had it just about solved. We didn't have a murder for 11 and a half days. And then a Democrat shot and murdered somebody in Anacostia. And then the Democrats say, see, Trump can't stop crime. And that was literally their reaction. See, that like this is a loss for Trump. In reality, it was a loss for the man that was shot and killed, and for his family and the people that people that loved him and the people that liked him. The Democrats don't care about that. The media, they employ all these fake journalists who aren't journalists at all. One is Yamich. They call her Yamich. Yamich Alcindor. Alcindor. Do you know the name Alcindor? Yeah. Lou Alcindor. Do you know the name Lou Alcindor? Yeah. A major NBA basketball player, Lou Alcindor. But never mind that. We'll get back to that. Here's Yamich Alcindor. That he was in that great movie Airplane. Remember that movie Airplane? That was good stuff. Yamich Alcindor with President Trump, because talking about sending National Guard to Chicago to back up the police so that the police can be free to go into the neighborhoods, and at Navy Pier and along the waterfront, the National Guard can take up not crime-ridden areas to free up the police to go to the crime-ridden areas. And Yamich Alcindor asked President Trump, well, you're waging, now keep in mind that the Democrats called up the National Guard last year in Chicago, no less, for the Democratic National Convention, and where they allegedly nominated, but then they dropped, and that's because they're anti-democratic. So Joe Biden is their candidate, and then they pretended, we just discovered that he's brain damaged, and we can't have that. Yeah, everybody knew that for years, and they lied and lied and lied and lied about that. And then they said, we can't have him, so let's take Kamala Harris. She's the vice president, and she's a woman of color. And what color? I don't know, kind of brown, kind of Indian, and funny. So they couldn't drop her because it would be racist, and they're the party of the KKK and the Confederacy. But never mind that. So Yamich Alcindor attacking President Trump. Because if you talk about the National Guard, which the Democrats called up for the Democratic Convention there last year, then you're waging and declaring war against the city of Chicago.
That's fake news. When you say that, darling, that's fake news.
Well, why would the Department of Defense?
Listen, be quiet.
Listen to her yelling over him.
You don't listen. You never listen. That's why you're second rate. We're not going to war. We're going to clean up our cities. We're going to clean them up so they don't kill 5 people every weekend. That's not war. That's common sense.
That's not war. That's common sense. The words common sense are coming back into the lexicon lately, I've noticed, and I think that's a positive development. Yeah, that's right. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That's Lou Alcindor became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and he converted to Islam. But he was Lou Alcindor. But Yamich Leonie Alcindor, she's a fake journalist, and they love her because she's POC and all that, WOC. She's Washington correspondent for NBC News and MSDNC, also known as MS-13 DNC. And she worked for PBS and for USA Today and the New York Times and because, WOC, all that stuff. She's 38 years old, but looks terrible, let's be honest. That's not looking very good. And the news media, they're all over that exchange. They say, Trump goes off. That was Trump going off right there. On reporter for asking if he's going to war with Chicago. Darling, that's fake news. That's the headline in the New York Post, no less. And the Democrats, they should start raising money for her because that's what they always do. She hasn't murdered anybody yet, but maybe soon. So President Trump snapped at a reporter Sunday for scornfully asking if he intended to go to war with crime-ridden Chicago after he posted a meme Saturday warning that the winning city will learn about the Department of War, renaming the Department of Defense as the Department of War, which had been the case up until 1947, but never mind that. NBC News White House correspondent Yamich Alcindor, who had famously clashed with Trump during his first term, set him off by asking, are you trying to go to war with Chicago? Again, when you look at Chicago versus Afghanistan, if you were in particular a young black male from Chicago during the peak of the war in Afghanistan, you would have been safer going to Afghanistan to go to war. Statistically true, but never mind that. So when you say that, darling, that's fake news, President Trump said nicely while gaggling with reporters. They say it's a gaggle when he hangs out with the reporter, not an official press conference, but he talked to him. Yamich Al-Sindor attempted to interject. That is to say, she interrupted him and talked over him and ignored him. But Trump forcefully cut her off. Be quiet. Listen, Trump snapped. You don't listen. You never listen. That's why you're second rate. And it's true. If you don't listen, then you don't learn. And if you don't learn, then you end up an ignorant beep and a Democrat for the rest of your life, and maybe a Washington reporter for a major news organization. But President Trump said, you don't listen, you never listen. That's why you're second rate. We're not going to war. We're going to clean up our cities. We're going to clean them up so they don't kill 5 people every weekend. That's not war. That's common sense, President Trump said. And the news media, they're very angry about this because, they prefer lots of violence and lots of crime. They're Democrats. That's who they are. And an ABC fake news reporter, Selena Wang, said, and this, I love this one. This is a good one. This is the statistical house of cards that the Democrats play. Well, if you look at another, and they frame it in, listen to the ABC fake reporter, frame it in purely political terms. This is what the Democrat Party, and it's Democrats shooting everybody all across the country in our big cities with Democrat mayors and Democrat city councils. But it's true that statistically there's a higher rate of homicides in St. Louis and in Memphis, Democrat city, never mind all that, and dominant voters and elected officials from St. Louis and Memphis, the cities. But they say, these are red states because they have a Republican governor or something. And Democrats shoot a bunch of people in Memphis. And so they say, look, why don't you send it to red states? Why don't you guys stop shooting people? How about that? So here's the ABC fake news reporter, Selena Wang.
Why? Let me ask you. Yeah. Really higher than Chicago? You're not... Excuse me. Do you know how many people were killed in Chicago last weekend? 8. You know how many people were killed in Chicago the week before? 7. You know how many people were wounded? 74 people were wounded. You think there's worse than that? I don't think so.
You think there's worse than that? I don't think so. And I have the numbers right in front of me because it's what I do for a living. That's not what Selena Wang does. She does Democrat Party propaganda. That's what she does for a living. But it's true that now, again, Chicago, 2024, 573 murders. She mentioned St. Louis, because red state or something like that, 149 murders. Now, it's a smaller city population-wise, so it's a higher rate than Chicago. But Chicago, 573 murders, war zone. St. Louis, 149 murders. The murder rate per 100,000 is actually higher than Washington, D.C.'s. But the Democrats, I think Harry Truman was credited with lies, damn lies, and statistics. And the Democrats, I've had Democrats pull this same BS on me. Look at Towa, Mississippi. They had 3 murders last year, the population of 12 people, so their murder rate's higher. And the Democrats, they love this propaganda. And Memphis, also a lot of homicides, but the murder rate is lower than St. Louis, but it's higher than Chicago. It is. The rate is, but the number of people murdered is fewer than half the number of people murdered in Chicago. But the and that's our corrupt news media pretending to, hey, we got a gotcha question here. Yeah, the murder rate is higher in Memphis. Why don't you send the Guardian to Memphis? Because there's a Republican governor there. We're going to call it a red state and claim that the reason you're targeting, and that's the word they use, Chicago, is because it's Democrats. Well, every place the shootings take place, Democrats, Democrat voters, and they elect Democrats. Don't give me that stuff. You guys. Hey, do you know that our good friends at Generic CBD, genericCBD.com, do you know them? Well, today they've got something for you, something special for you. It's a free sample of Generic CBD's best-selling CBD muscle and joint cream. If you haven't tried it yet, listen, it's amazing. It's very powerful. 2 or 3 drops might be all that you need. It melts into your stiff, aching hands, your knuckles, your knees, your neck, your back, and it goes to work in a matter of seconds. It feels fantastic. The relief can last for hours and hours. Plus, it contains 0 THC, none of that stuff, none of that druggy stuff, the THC. So you don't need a prescription or anything. It's an over-the-counter lotion. And you try it right now, and they're going to send you not 1, but 2 free samples because you and I hang out together. That's 2 full treatments. You keep one for yourself, give one to your friend or to your best girl. Now, listen, they do ask you to pay $2 to help with the shipping to mail it to you, but that's all. It'll be the best $2 you spend all year. To get your free samples from Generic CBD, all you have to do is go to yourfreesamples.com. That's yourfreesamples.com. And you're going to love this stuff. Yourfreesamples.com. These products and statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. Products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, prevent any disease or illness. Yes, sir. Yeah, so the Democrats on the news media, but I repeat myself, they've made it clear that they're pro-crime and pro-criminal. And I've got a bunch more of these media people coming up, and the Democrats. I got more Democrat media stirring up the Civil War because the Democrats, they're violent, belligerent party. All right, let us... and I've got this. Wait till you hear this fake reporter who came from CNN's China office, and now she's ABC White House correspondent. And, oh, yeah, it's a red state. Look at all the murders here. I'll straighten out this idiot in a minute. But right now, let's go to the telephones. Let's go to David calling from Arlington, Virginia. David, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
Your business about your comments about common sense coming back, I wish it were true. But the Democrats for years have been calling for, quote, common sense, unquote, gun control legislation.
That's true.
And which sense is more common? Which sense is the better common sense?
Well, you make a good point there, David. I've got to say, yeah. I like to say they use the words, but they don't know what they mean. And were it not for double standards, liberals would have no standards at all. You're right. They've been abusing the term common sense for some time. I'm trying to bring it back. Yeah, Democrat Party is pro-crime. Democrat Party is pro-murder. Democrat Party is pro-illegal alien gang member in your backyard. And Chicago, I want to get more audio from the ABC fake news people and there's nothing to see here. But I looked it up because we have access to Al Gore's amazing internet here. And because of our white privilege, it's high-speed internet. We have high speed, not like POC. People of color don't have high speed, only low speed. They have that dial-up modem thing going. The Democrats say. President Trump in the soundbite we played while he's being yelled at and talked over by a fraud who's not a reporter at all, but a Democrat Party activist. And he said, do you have any idea? There were 8 people killed in Chicago last weekend, he said. I looked it up, and one more of the wounded died. Now it turns out 9 killed, 52 wounded last weekend in Chicago. 9 murdered, 52 more shot and wounded. And that's last weekend. It was a 3-day weekend. And the Democrats say, well, it's a 3-day weekend, so what do you expect from Democrats? Now, this weekend, we just finished. Today's Monday, and it's Monday morning here on the East Coast. And in Chicago over the weekend, what did they have there this weekend? They have to keep updating it because the numbers keep changing. But here's the latest from CBS Fake News. 7 dead, 12 wounded in weekend shootings across Chicago. Police say 7 dead, and it's a 2-day weekend, not a 3-day weekend. So the Democrats don't have any excuse to fall back on. And I got to tell you, this idiot reporter attacking President Trump said, and I'm about to get back to her as well, the ABC fake news person, whose name is Selena Wang. Selena Wang. Selena is like a Latinx name, right? Selena. Salinas. So we got Selena and then Wang. That's definitely a Chinese name. I recognize it. One of my best friends growing up was Aaron Wong, W-A-N-G, but pronounced it Wong. And Selena Wang, she was CNN's reporter in China, and then ABC hired her to be the White House reporter, because what better training for the Trump White House than being in China covering communism for a long time? But she's yelling, oh, well, why don't you send your National Guard to St. Louis and to Memphis? Well, we looked up St. Louis and Memphis, Michael Piercy and I did this morning, and it's true that these are states that might vote Republican for the president. But the cities of St. Louis and Memphis, well, Memphis has had Democrat mayors since the 1970s. Not a Republican in sight since the 1970s. That means the populace votes Democrat every stinking time since the 1970s. But wait, because St. Louis is even better. St. Louis has had Democrat mayors since 1949. The last non-Democrat mayor they had, I think it was, what is he, a Bull Moose Party? A Whig? They had a Whig not long before. But Democrats as mayor in St. Louis since 1949. Democrats as mayor in Memphis since 1970. Now listen to the Lion Sacagawea at ABC Fake News. Her name is Selena Wang. And Selena Wang said, oh, well, and this is her story. Now she's not yelling at President Trump anymore. But then she went and did a little TV story, and it aired on the television on the network news broadcast, which used to be at least marginally respectable broadcasts, but they aren't anymore. It's tragic. I should take over all 3 networks as president of the news divisions. But never mind that. ABC News, this segment, I was watching it last night, watching it for you, and I was texting Michael Piercy immediately while I was watching. So you gotta check this out. But listen to the propaganda that they do at ABC Fake News and Selena Wang.
The president drawing outrage from leaders in Chicago after threatening the city with the prospect of war, a reference to his executive order rebranding the Department of Defense the Department of War.
He is threatening the city of Chicago with war. Now, he did send out a tweet, but he's doing it mockingly and tongue-in-cheek, because he does a lot of that. I don't know if they've been paying attention to President Trump for the last 10 years, but he tends to put out tongue-in-cheek tweets, for example. And he did put out a tweet that made me say, oh, okay, well, he just did that. But President Trump tweeting out that in Chicago, because he changed the name of the Department of Defense, right, to the Department of War. And President Trump tweeted out, I love the smell of deportations in the morning, and a picture of himself looking like Colonel Kilgore in Apocalypse Now, Robert Duvall, the great Robert Duvall, who lives out there in Virginia, not too far from us, and he is great. I love the smell of deportations in the morning. Smells like victory. Chicago is about to find out why it's called the Department of War. And then he put 3 little emojis of helicopters, and I didn't even know you could do that, but I've never done an emoji, so I wouldn't know. Selena Wang, and listen to this. He is, he's only, and they love the word targeting, President Trump. He's targeting high-crime, beep-hole cities that you guys have turned into war zones, and then you act like it's all perfectly normal, right? That we can have, 573 murders last year in Chicago, and they just say, oh, that's perfectly normal. You have 235 murders in Democrat, and that's Democrat-run Chicago, entirely Democrat city council, the Democrat mayor forever and ever. In Memphis, Democrat mayor forever and ever since the 1970s, 235 murders last year. And of course, in Memphis, 149 murders last year, and they've had nothing but Democrat mayors since 1949. But listen to ABC News. Listen to how they say, oh, well, it's a red state, meaning a Republican state, with a Democrat city, which is where all the murders are. Democrats shouldn't be allowed in Tennessee. I got to tell you. So here's Selena Wang.
I pressed the president on why he's targeting Democratic strongholds like Boston and Chicago.
Targeting.
Mr. President, why target Chicago and Boston when there are cities and red states with higher crime rates?
Yeah. Really higher than Chicago?
There are, like Memphis and St. Louis.
Excuse me. You know how many people were killed in Chicago last weekend? 8. You think there's worse than that? I don't think so.
But FBI statistics show otherwise. The red state cities of Memphis and St. Louis have significantly higher murder rates than both Boston and Chicago.
Red state cities of St. Louis and Memphis, Democrat strongholds in these states, St. Louis, Missouri, Memphis, Tennessee. And I say, oh, well, sure, statewide, they elect Republicans to the Senate and as governor sometimes, but not always. So they're red states. The media says, why are you targeting these innocent Democrat-run cities where they've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of murders every year? And they use the word targeting. And then they say that these red states with these Democrat cities of Memphis and of St. Louis, why aren't you sending troops in there? Because they have a higher murder rate per 100,000 residents. But again, Chicago with 573 murders last year, St. Louis with 149 murders last year, and a smaller population in St. Louis, so the rate is higher, right? But that's the news media, trying to find ways to distract, to change the subject, to mislead, lies, damn lies, and statistics. And ABC News and Selena Wang engaging in lies, damn lies, and statistics. Isn't that amazing? I am telling you. And Trump is like, what are you kidding? 8 killed in Chicago last weekend. And 1 more of the wounded died, so now it's 9 killed. This weekend, 7 killed, 2-day weekend, not a 3-day weekend. 7 killed, 12 more wounded in weekend shootings across Chicago. The CBS station there. Isn't that amazing? And so that's it for Selena, right? And Selena Wang and ABC News. And then we've got the rotund circumference, the governor. He bought the governor's mansion, Pritzker, with his grandfather's money because his grandfather started the Hyatt hotel chain and the family still owns it. So everybody in the family's a billionaire. He's got a transgender first cousin, too. Used to be a man. Now he says he's a woman. So he's still a man, but he says he's a woman. So here is the governor of the state of Illinois. And this is their talking point. Listen to the weasels, the lying Sacagawea. Oh, yeah, red state murders are worse. If you go to the blue cities, the Democrat, I don't like that red-blue thing because they're obviously red like communism. And we're blue like true blue, red, white, and blue American. But in Republican states, they have Democrat cities. The Democrat cities are where you find all of the murders in Memphis and in St. Louis. President Trump should recommend to Democrats that they stop murdering people. And he should recommend that Democrat elected politicians should step up and ask their voters and their sons and their constituents and their employees to stop shooting and killing people.
This is a nefarious endeavor. He's going into blue states, blue cities. You don't see any activity in a Republican state or a Republican city. And yet, when he says it's all about crime, those Republican states have higher crime rates. Those Republican cities have higher crime rates. So, this isn't about
liar.
That. We should know that, and the public should know that.
Liar. Just a filthy, awful criminal liar. He should go to the penitentiary when he's done, like so many other Illinois governors have done over the years. I actually went and looked at a political map of Memphis, Tennessee, and it's by the local media, and they showed me a color-coded map of where then here it is now, I've got it right up in front of me, of the politics, and it's the bestneighborhood.org, and they've got their layout of Memphis, Tennessee. This is Memphis, Tennessee. Did I say St. Louis? This is Memphis, Tennessee. And basically the entirety of the city of Memphis, Tennessee is colored blue, meaning Democrat, with a little offshoot coming in from the east that is pink, and that means split evenly between Republican and Democrat. And then if any of the areas on this map, political map of Memphis, Tennessee, if any of the areas were more conservative, then it would be red. There is not a fleck of red on the political map of Memphis, Tennessee. There is not a Republican pocket, not a Republican stronghold. And the lying, morbidly obese Sacagawea, I think he had some lap band surgery or something, he said that these, and he calls them red cities, meaning Republican cities, just a fatuous lie. And he said that, oh, yeah, they're red states and red cities. No, once again, the cities being discussed, Memphis, 100% Democrat mayors going back to the 1970s. St. Louis, 100% Democrat mayors going back to 1949. And the Lion Sacagawea said these are Republican cities. He is a filthy criminal. All right, let's go to Pritzker again from Friday, because if you send Immigration and Customs Enforcement in to enforce the law of the United States of America, that would cause mayhem.
Part of their kind of nefarious plan is begin with ICE, cause mayhem on the ground. And by doing that, say that there's a need for military troops on the ground to protect ICE. Don't play into their hand. And if you have the opportunity, please protest, pull out your phone, video everything that they're doing.
Please protest, video, target the police, not the criminals, but the people looking to enforce the law. And wasn't this corpulent corporate leader, wasn't he the governor last year when the Democrats called up the National Guard for the Democratic National Convention in Chicago? I believe that he was the governor when the Democrats called up the National Guard in Chicago last year to protect their elites. Everybody likes that word, elites. Coming in for the Democratic National Convention, where they'd pick Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or somebody and then change them later and all of that good stuff. Just amazing. Man, oh, man. And there's more, because the governor was telling Latinx people over the weekend to not celebrate any Latinx stuff because they should live in fear and be paranoid. And he didn't tell them they should stop shooting people. But I'll say this, stop shooting people. How about that? You want mayhem? Look at yourselves. Smell yourself. Hey, I want to talk to you about living a better digital life right here on planet Earth. You know, Al Gore's amazing internet and all that stuff with one of our newest partners, the great people at WebRoot. I chose WebRoot because their total protection plan. Now, WebRoot's all-in-one package offer includes options for individuals and for families. Get a plan for an individual covering up to 5 devices. Get a plan for your family covering up to 10 devices. With the family package, they've got you covered no matter what. WebRoot's coverage includes antivirus protection, identity theft protection, VPN, backup, and more. And, yeah, listen, you got the kids on their iPads and their phones. You got mom upstairs on the laptop. Doesn't matter whether you're an adult or a toddler, a student, going away to college. They've got you covered no matter what. WebRoot allows for my best girl and I to live a better digital life. And that's why I want to recommend that you do the same with one of our great sponsors who must be loved. And right now, you're going to get 50% off, half off of WebRoot's Total Protection Plan or WebRoot's Essentials Plan when you go to webroot.com/plant. That's me, Plante. There's an E on the end. Nobody knows why. Again, 50% off, half off for you at WebRoot's Total Protection Plan, WebRoot's Essentials Plan, when you go to webroot.com/plant. Yes, sir. There it is, yeah. President Trump and their governors lie, their senators lie, their House members lie, and their sons and daughters are out shooting people all weekend. You know, the Democrat Party.
Those Republican states have higher crime rates. Those Republican cities have higher crime rates.
The red state cities of Memphis and St. Louis
we got so much craziest. I got a crazy poll for you. Democrat women don't want to have babies anymore. That's a good one coming up. Republican men do. That toxic masculinity the Democrats hate so much. Let's go to the telephones again. I've got that and, a lot more. Let's go to James calling from Chicago, Illinois, where it must be terrifying with the threat of law enforcement coming to Chicago, James. 7 murders over the weekend and 12 more shot. And that's a 2-day weekend, James.
Yeah. We often have a lot of activity on the weekends. They tend to be pretty spicy. During the hotter weather, things get crazy, yeah.
It's global warming. It's another side effect of climate change.
Well, yes. Mr. Plant, I was calling in to say just an observation that the ICE guys were here in Chicago, or rumored to be starting on last Friday. And I drive through 2 different Hispanic neighborhoods on my way from the West Burbs to go downtown. Uh-huh. And a drive that normally would take 45, 50 minutes is suddenly down to 25 minutes. And the highways are lighter, too. So I am absolutely in favor of this. The same thing happened out in California with the freeways, suddenly less traffic when ICE was out there.
It takes you 45 or 50 minutes to get in, but with the rumor of ICE showing up, your commute went down to 20 minutes. That's what you just said, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And at one point, I passed by a government building at some kind of, housing benefit building. Usually the line is out the door, down the block, and around the corner.
But no.